Hello, my name's Stuart. This is Reanimated. Welcome to another episode of this fine podcast where we're going to talk about something reanimated. I'm in California. Joining us, as always, H.A. Conrad in New York. Hello, H.A.
Hello, hello.
Hello to you. And special guest from the northern climes, Kyle. How are you, Kyle?
I'm doing fine. How you doing?
Super duper.
Yeah,
This is kind of like the original reanimation story.
well, not quite. We know that there's an earlier
Oh,
one.
well, yes, there is one other. Well, two. A gentleman named Lazarus, and then another gentleman named Jesus.
Mhm.
Okay, but today we're talking about, yeah, Frankenstein, the Guillermo Del Toro movie came out on Netflix just yesterday. And we will also be talking about a little bit of news. There's not a ton out there, but a couple of projects coming up. One I'm pretty excited about, one I just heard about today. Did either of you heard of This Is Not a Test, the book or the film adaptation that we read about in Dread Central?
I had not.
No, me neither.
Apparently, it's a zombie story. It's going to be set in the 90s, and I don't really know much else about it except that I will be happy to watch it. It's an interesting interview on Dread Central because they name dropped the whole cast, and I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are, and they're like,
Well,
what a
it is
great
a
get.
Canadian movie, so there you go.
Still,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're probably all Canadian.
So the director's Adam McDonald. Has done other films such as Backcountry and Pie Wacket. And in this article, they also make the assertion that zombies are having a moment. What do you think, HA?
I mean, I feel like they have continued to have a moment,
It's
so I don't
yeah,
really think it's really. I think people put up those headlines and they're just like, "Hey, let's just talk about this." But I mean, I don't never. I feel like they've been having a moment for 20 years now.
I'm kind of there with you. I mean, there have been some slumps
20
in the
plus
moment.
years, if you count the
Yeah,
28 days later, right? I
yep.
think that kicked it off, and there we went.
Kyle, do you feel like zombies are having a moment?
I think the reason why it feels maybe to these folks like zombies are having a moment is because the proper, the regular Walking Dead show ended. And so I think that show was so massively popular that it kind of kept zombies in the forefront of everyone's minds. And the spin-offs are not quite as popular. And then I think 28 years later, being back in theaters kind of was like, oh yeah, zombies, these things we used to watch on TV every week. So I really don't feel like it's lulled that much, but you guys pay even more attention than I do. But I think to a casual observer, maybe just that gap between the finale of The Walking Dead and 28 years later coming out is
Yeah,
a little bit of a fallow period from a zombie perspective.
that's fair. I think yeah, the return of prestige zombie projects. They also name drop We Bury the Dead, which is one of our other news items.
Hmm.
Um, in this article. Well, I mean, if a horror website is going to say zombies are back, baby, then I'm there with them. Like maybe I don't think they ever left, but uh, I'm excited for Queens of the Dead. We have a long to-do list in our podcast show notes. I don't know, it's at the bottom today. HA, if you want to read through it, we've got work to do, kid. Work to do. Um, Including on January 2nd, clear your calendar because that's when We Bury the Dead is coming out. I don't think we had a release date before this new trailer dropped. Did either of you happen to glimpse the trailer?
Oh, I did, and the teeth gnashing piece was just very hard for me to watch it. I'm assuming that's what it is, but the
Yeah, the
little
clicking, popping,
whatever that clicking noise is like nails on a chalkboard to me, and
the
I
way
was
that
having a
it was
ooh,
lined up with the letters of coming soon at the end of the
yes,
trailer, like pop, 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 pop. I was like, "Oh,
yep.
this is great. This is some
Ooh,
good Foley work, and I like that it's choreographed.
so
This,
successful.
I think I prefer this trailer. It's a lot of the same footage we've seen, but it focuses more on what I like about this premise of going in as like a disaster volunteer. I think this is a cool, fun premise for Daisy Ridley to be working in. Kyle,
No,
I think we've talked about this film with you before. You were saying that you remembered, oh, I remember you saying anyway that Daisy Ridley's career has not meteored the way you were hoping it would.
It's funny that was going to be my feedback again. I'm excited to see Daisy Ridley in in something that looks more interesting to me than what she's been doing for the last couple of years because I really enjoyed her in the Star Wars films. I also noticed this time that the director of this film also directed what I think was a straight to Netflix movie, 1922. It's a Stephen King short story adaptation. And I watched that on Netflix and I really liked it. So that makes me a little more excited for this movie. So I'm cautiously intrigued. I think like I said, I'm really pulling for Daisy. Like I apparently said in the past, I'm really pulling for Daisy, and I'd like to see her in something that's fun and get some, wider audience than a lot of the things that she's been doing since she, ended Star Wars.
Hmm. I'm excited to see her in something too. I feel like she's probably been laying a little bit low, and so this is kind of a cool thing, I think, for her to enter back into the fray. So, I mean, she's been doing like a little bit of theater, some indie stuff, but nothing massive yet. So, I'm excited to see her. Um, and teeth clicking aside, I will obviously watch this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I'm excited for it also. And then the final piece of news is dumb, and I put that in the show notes that it is dumb, but I couldn't not click on it. Undead Walking, which I think is a fandom webpage, or like November 20 is going to be a huge day for Walking Dead fans, and if you're a real fan of The Walking Dead, you already know what I'm talking about. And I had to read all the way to the end to be like, what are they going on about? I don't understand the significance. And then the reveal is that's the last episode. That's the date of the last episode of the show, of the Prime show. And apparently they put that in their diary and we're like, circle that number on the calendar. So important. I just wanted to drag it on the air on our podcast. That's really why I put it in the show notes.
Okay, I was like, really? When I saw it.
It's pretty
I
silly.
mean, I was having a celebration. I was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. November 20th, 2022. This will be the 3-year anniversary of the Walking Dead series finale. Everybody remembers that so clearly. So silly. I mean, it's hard to celebrate this when they have never really left the air with the spin-offs, right? And like,
Right.
so it's funny. Um,
I also love how the suggestion for the celebration is just to watch the whole series again. It's not like there's a gathering or dress like, Walking Dead Day or post a selfie with your, merchandise or anything like that. It's just literally like start binge watching, guys. You'll finish in December sometime. I think it's a pretty weak way to honor the legacy of the show.
must be paid for by some streamer, whether it's AMC or Netflix.
It does have kind of a false flag kind of feeling to it to me.
Yeah. Anyway, so if you're not busy on November 20th, you might find yourself binging all of The Walking Dead, which I think would take more than one day.
Yeah.
And so that was the dumb news.
This is maybe not worthy of inclusion, but in college, my friends and I were very into The West Wing,
Oh no, really?
and we hosted a West Wing binge party where we watched either 12 or 14 hours. We chose our favorite episodes from all the seasons and watched like The West Wing all day long. And by the end of that, I was like, I hate this show. I never want
Really?
to see another moment of this show.
Do you still
It,
feel that way though? Did
no, no,
you
no. It faded quickly, but there's just only so much television apparently that I can really ingest in one, period of time. And about 9 hours turned out to be turned out to be it.
um
And
totally
so
also off sides here, but related to the West Wing, did we talk about the West Wing weekly? Did you watch there was like a whole podcast where they followed every episode?
I listen. Yes, I did listen to the West Wing
It
Weekly
was
when it was
kind
aired.
of calming and zen in this time of turmoil, but anyway, just putting it
Yeah,
out there. 9 hours, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that I think I used to be able to binge more and now I can't as much. How about you, Stuart?
9 hours is basically watching all the extended cuts Lord of the Rings movies, and I feel like I've done that at least once.
I've definitely done that, but I don't know that it was like
And I didn't hate them at the end.
really.
But
I
I
don't.
could hate Aaron Sorkin's dialogue eventually. And I'm sure
Yeah.
that like at his party, you probably all end up doing walk and talks, like just around the room, right?
I for some reason we ate like food that was related to like the episodes on the show, and
Oh,
like
like the sandwiches and stuff,
yeah, we I think we might have
salad.
dressed like in suits, like
Oh,
Oh
you
hazmat
my
did
suits.
God.
costumes.
And
You went all out.
it was a little bit elaborate. You would think that like college would have been my prime binge watching years, so I should have been able to handle this, but by the end we were just kind of like pretty dang sick of the West Wing. So I cannot imagine, again, that was only 14 hours or so that we did that. I think we started at 9 a.m. and we finished, sometime around midnight. Um, and
Honestly, that sounds like my kind of party.
so the Walking Dead from start to finish would take way longer than that. You'd barely be out of the second season or something like that.
No,
So
well, yeah, yeah, it would take forever.
I think
Uh,
Stuart and I would talk to each other with walkie-talkies the entire time.
we should do that. Yeah. Well, okay. That's a fascinating anecdote, Kyle. Thank you for sharing that.
I don't know if this warrants um, inclusion, but apparently there's a game called Peak where you climb through forests. It's kind of like a very cartoony looking game, and they introduced zombie enemies into the game, but then had to remove them because they were so strong and they were freaking people out too much. So I,
Oh,
I just think that's funny.
The funny part to me about that story was they were like, we did playtest them, but I guess our playtesters were too good.
Yeah, it's a kind of a shot at their rest of their play base, I think.
Yeah, I don't know the people who play like a cartoon character game where you live in trees and are like gingerbread men necessarily is going to have like the audience that will be good at fighting zombies. But I
Yeah,
don't know.
I just think it's funny that every day there's some different little internet subculture that I never knew existed, and today it's whatever the heck this game is about these little gingerbread men who climb around in trees all day long.
Are we ready to talk about Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein? Only monsters play God? Did I remember that
yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was in theaters for a hot minute, and then it jumped to Netflix, which must have cost them a pretty penny. I assume we all watched it on Netflix.
Yes.
I mean, it was playing at my local theater. I feel a little guilty for not going there to watch it, but then again, convenience won out.
Stuart, uh, listeners who don't know us personally may not know that Stuart now lives in my hometown, which I don't live in, but he lives where I grew up, and so I
Wasn't
was
enough
there.
room for the both of us, Kyle.
Oh, Kyle had to get out of town.
Stuart moved there, I moved away. Uh, and there's a new movie theater right downtown. And
Yep.
I was there recently and I walked past the movie theater and it was playing this very movie. And I like walked into the lobby and I almost bought a ticket. But
But you didn't.
it was about 8 a.m. 8 p.m. on a work night, and I asked the guy behind the counter how long the movie was, and he said, with the trailers, it's about 3 hours. And I was like, I can't do it.
Hard pass.
Yeah, I
I
can't
will.
we walking out of the theater at 11:30 p.m. on a work night. I'm
You'd
too
be
old
the
for that.
only person on the streets of our little town if that
That's
was the
very true.
case.
Except for the guys cleaning the movie theater and getting out of there.
But you got to support the theaters, just saying. And I'm really
Yeah.
It's
bad too, because
it's so great to have a movie
it,
theater back,
it's
honestly.
so great. And I do try to go, but I'll have to admit, like, even like the last couple of times have been, I think actually the last time I went was maybe 28 years later. And I had to shush somebody, or I had to stop somebody from filming the
Yeah, that's right.
film with their
We both had nightmare
iPhone.
stories from watching that film in the
Oh,
theaters.
wait, didn't you have beer guys? You had beer guys?
Just two boomers sitting next to me who would not shut up. Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing against boomers.
Anyway, but still support the theaters or they're going to go away.
Yeah,
And there
that
is
was
something.
it looked like a very nice theater. I'm excited to eventually see a movie there at some time when I'm back at home.
So to talk about this film, we have to probably talk about the book as well, right? So
Do
you
we?
know, what?
Do we really? Can't we
A
talk
little
about the
bit.
Robert De Niro adaptation?
No, but it's a book written by an 18-year-old that ended up having legs, basically.
Yeah.
Um, and this is something that we've seen multiple films of. And I don't know, like, did you, both of you felt like, I don't know that this needed to be almost 3 hours long though, or 2.5 hours. But we'll talk about that.
I mean, when you think about it from the context of the how the story is being told in the movie,
Yeah,
like it was they just talking for three hours?
I know. It's like, oof.
What else are you
And
gonna do? Stuck out on the ice?
Yeah.
yeah. But kind of wanna like the sci-fi idea kind of came from this, or was really, really kind of took off.
But
So I
I
don't know.
can't remember if we've talked about this aspect on the show before, but you know, Mary Shelley and Lord Byron and another guy whose name I'm blanking on were, like you said, young. I don't know if they were all 18, but they were young and they were at some sort of
18.
vacation home and they
Yes, they were at Lake Geneva and they
they
were
came
all
up
drinking
with
absinthe.
and they bet each other. They had a little contest to see who could write the best. I think it was originally supposed to be a ghost story or
Yeah.
maybe just a horror story.
Nope, ghost.
And one of those became Frankenstein, and one of them became uh, a novella called The Vampire, which is
Hmm.
heavily inspired Dracula and a lot of the vampiric genre of fiction that came after it. So it was a very important gathering or vacation for these
Yeah.
folks for
I
pop
mean,
culture
I
history.
feel like absinthe and Lake Geneva have a lot to answer for.
I read the book in high school. I remember enjoying it, but it's not something that I've revisited a lot. And I have to say that my familiarity with kind of Frankenstein in like movie culture is pretty low. I don't
Oh,
think I've ever seen anything more than clips of like the Boris Karloff movies. I've never seen the Kenneth Branagh film from the 90s. I have pretty much only
what
seen
about
Young
young
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein?
Young Frankenstein is pretty much my touchstone for this. It's like a weird instance where like the spoof becomes the source material,
Mm.
where it is actually how I know all of the, you know, all of the tropes of the genre that it's supposed to be spoofing because I've seen Young Frankenstein so many times.
What about you, Stuart? Did you? I saw them all, and
Uh-huh.
I guess I was a little focused on this as an idea for a while. Um, but what did you watch these like in high school or as an adult?
So I read the book in high school or college, and I don't remember anything about it. For whatever reason, I do remember you say Kenneth Branagh. I think Robert De Niro because he was the monster in the 1994 version. Um,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a similar tale. So again, we're kind of like the last time we talked was for Nosferatu. Here we are doing another classic retelling of a classic tale where you kind of know where it's going. And there's one moment in this movie where I was like, "Oh, come on." It was just too much like of
Yeah,
the doing the very expected thing at the very
yeah,
expected time, and that was kind of a little just I get annoyed by that. I don't I want to be thrilled. And sometimes watching a story that you know the entire plot to is it's hard to be thrilled by.
yeah. I mean, I do think it's sort of timely given that this was sort of there was like a lot of anxiety about science and human interaction with science and what that was going to be. So I'm it feels like it's a good time for this to be out there. Although I don't know that it gets that message across as in the same way. Um, but
So
uh,
Mary Shelley wrote this book in 1818. This
yeah, but
film
they
is
made this.
set 40 years in the future, or give or take.
Yeah, like they wanted it to be pretty and gothic and kind of Victorian-ish. So I feel like that they wanted to be able to, I don't know. I can get why they moved it forward a little bit.
Well, let's talk about this cast.
Hmm.
Um, without getting into the plot or anything, but it's all-star cast. Obviously, like you get Guillermo Del Toro. I think he's got a lot of pull since winning his Oscar and can pretty much pull together any number of people, including some um one Satrakian uh, who plays the old man. Like so, you know, Guillermo del Toro made The Strain, and that guy who played Satrakian, what was his name? I forget his name now. Blind man, David Bradley. He's also in Harry Potter as like the the Mudblood.
Yeah,
Remember what I'm talking about?
I did not recognize him as being,
I
isn't
didn't
he
either.
Argus Finch? Filch? He's like the
Filch, yeah.
janitor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing a much sweeter, kinder version of that of himself here. I mean, even in Satrakian, he was kind of gruff and a bit of a rascal.
Oh my
But
God,
so
this guy was Walder Frey.
and Walder Frey, yeah.
I completely did not recognize him even a little bit. That's
Hmm.
kind of amazing.
Yeah. And we also had a repeat from Nosferatu in Ralph Ineson as Professor Kremp. You recognized his gravel voice, I'm sure, immediately, and he was like the doctor of the psych hospital in Nosferatu.
Yeah,
Hmm.
he was in this only very briefly, right? He was
Yeah,
kind of one of the people watching the initial reanimations that he was doing in front of the like the Society of Doctors or whatever.
yeah. And
Also in
granted,
Harry Potter.
also, really, I don't remember
Yeah.
everybody, but
He's
they
one of the Caros, and he was like pretty. That's interesting. I guess, everybody British has been in Harry Potter for the most part, so shouldn't be
um
surprising.
this cast, yeah, like even these small parts are played by pretty impressive actors, I guess is what I'm getting at. Because then at the very top of the pile, you got Oscar Isaac, who's delivering a quite a performance, almost unrecognizable as Oscar Isaac at times. Um,
Yeah.
So I was very primed to love this movie because it's a genre that I love, horror and specifically gothic horror, and I have traditionally been a really big Guillermo del Toro fan. I love Oscar Isaac. Like there's just really no reason why this movie shouldn't be a perfect fit for me. And it's come out to pretty good reviews, but I did not enjoy this movie. Uh, and I'm pretty surprised by that. And a big part of the reason why I did not enjoy this movie is I think that Oscar Isaac is either completely miscast or what took his performance in a direction that just really did not work for me. And I don't think he's done very much, many favors by the way that Victor Frankenstein is written in this movie, but even given that with what he's working with, it just really did not work for me at all. So I'm curious what you guys think, but he's, in my opinion, just kind of floundering for most of the film.
huh.
So I saw. I was also very excited to see this for lots of reasons, and I do love um all of the things related to this. I've seen every movie. I really think it's a movie, or it's a story that you can like retell and reimagine in different ways. So I was really excited to see. And my general, and I love Oscar Isaac, but like he's so amazing. And it really, and it wasn't just him. I think this is what they were trying to do, is this like super over the top gothic tale, like almost like, I don't know, almost like a Penny Dreadful pulp kind of thing. But it didn't hit in the way that I think, or maybe it did, that they were intending. So I had the same reaction, Kyle. But not just with him. I like felt like Mia Goth was also incredibly strange and weird, and I don't think that any of the emotional heartstrings that they were trying to pull got pulled. They didn't make sense to me, or they felt very like shallow. Or like they weren't quite getting, it was like they were trying really hard, but they couldn't hit the depth that they were trying to hit, if that makes sense. Um, like I didn't really feel moved by a lot of it, but I did think it was very beautiful. So,
So you mentioned Mia Goth, who I hadn't seen in anything before, even though she's done quite a lot of films, a lot of horror too. The X film series is
She's really good in that. I think those films are kind of varying quality, but she's really good in them.
so what did you think of her in this then, Kyle?
I thought that Lady Elizabeth was pretty underwritten. And
Hey,
I have this weird
sure.
problem with this movie, which is that on the one, and there are things that I enjoyed about it, so I'm not trying to just like, you know, put the whole thing down, but it is so slow of a film. I checked my watch or I looked at the little Netflix scrubber when the monster is reanimated, and that happens over an hour into the
Yeah.
movie. And it's kind of like Peter Parker or, Spider-Man, where it's been rebooted so many times and we've seen that origin story so many times. We all know what's going to happen. And so I was kind of like, come on, Guillermo, get to the reanimation. Like, this is what we're here for. And it takes forever to get there. And almost everything that happens, with the exception of the stuff at like the frozen ship where there is some action and he's like, the monster is fighting his way on board and stuff like that. But everything that happens in kind of quote unquote the past is pretty talky up to that point. And yet, somehow, even though it's so slow and there's so much talking, many of these characters feel very underdeveloped. And Lady Elizabeth's a great example of that. She meets Victor, and she pretty much clocks him correctly from the very beginning. They have this scene where he impersonates the priest. He goes into the confession box and he pretends to be the father and, basically hear her confession, which is a horrifying breach,
Violation.
basically.
Yeah.
Um, but she clocks him immediately and she's basically like, you suck. Is her message. Like, I don't like you. You creep me out. Like, leave me alone. And then they have this kind of weird kind of flirtation thing that happens after that with like the butterflies and things. It doesn't seem particularly motivated by anything. She doesn't really explain why, she has kind of changed her position and she now finds him romantically intriguing. And then uh, she chooses to be with the brother and kind of leaves him in his lab. It just all, I don't understand how it can take so much time and yet feel so rushed, but somehow that's how I felt about it. And so, um, I really just feel like her character was added for um, almost kind of visual resonance, if that makes any sense. Like she's there to basically be an object of interest for the monster and to serve as a way to reference or call back to kind of imagery from Bride of Frankenstein, but it doesn't feel like she's a real character to me. And so, just like with Isaac, I cannot figure out if it is goth, the performance, or the writing of the character that I have a problem with, but I have a problem with one or the other.
It's
What
I
about
would
you, Felix?
imagine it's probably the writing more than anything else. I found it really fascinating that they had her play his mom and his love interest.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is by design. It's like to further uh
Make him creepy?
yeah, like yeah, further God, I can't think of the word, but yeah, basically creepify Victor throughout the film. And though he professes to love his brother, and I think on some level he does, clearly he's not above trying to you know, torpedo his brother's love life for the profit of getting with his fiance. Um, yeah, is it believable after the confession scene that they would have this flirtation? I know, but also then you have to kind of reinterpret what she says in the confession, knowing that it was him, and then they kind of have this cute wave and go off and like go and do things together, like go dancing and have dinner and talk about books. And there's so to me, it was like that's what she says to him in the confession clearly was not she's like saying what she thinks, but also then she's interested in him in some way. And so it does kind of, I was willing to forgive that. It was just basically that she's been introduced as a very intelligent character, very insightful, who is at least his equal in philosophy, if not in science. And I think that's part of what draws him to her too.
And
Uh,
she looks like his mom, who he was weirdly obsessed and attached to.
yep.
But, you know,
And Charles Dance is his dad, which we didn't even get to all the way down the cast list yet. But yeah, freaking Charles Dance, never playing a nice guy.
never.
He's such a charming person when you see him in interviews and stuff. He seems like such a warm and friendly guy. And then every character that he's ever played, since Tywin Lannister, but even going back before that, is just like
Yeah.
this guy's the worst person on the face of planet
That's tough. That's a tough break. We also have Stregobor from The Witcher is playing the captain of the ship. Lars Mikkelsen, I don't know if he's related to Mads Mikkelsen, but I'm just going to assume yes, he is.
They're
His younger
brothers.
I
brother
feel like
is
he's got to
Mads.
be because they look so much
I
alike.
guess they kind of, I don't know that I see
Well,
that.
Mads looks like a strange dude, but like they have a resemblance for sure.
Felix Kammerer plays William. By the way, I was confused about this. They're both being referred to as Baron. Can you have double barons? I think
Yeah,
it's
there
got to
can
be
be
one
more than
person.
one barony for sure.
But they're the same barony. Their dad was a baron. They don't get to both be baron
I don't know.
unless it's like deputy baron. I don't know how this shit works,
I
but
don't know how any of that works.
it just was confusing to me. I'm like, oh, did William become the baron then? That seems like Victor got passed over, but then later on they're calling Victor a baron too. Also, I will admit to some confusion. The fortunes of their house mostly is attributed to their late mother, Claire, who came with an extensive dowry and allowed Charles Dance, the Dr. Dad Baron, to continue his lavish lifestyle. She dies, then a series of horrible events happen that are just narrated and not shown, where like there's a fire and some revolts, probably in Haiti, I guess. I don't know where their money is. And they're like, we lost everything, but we kept the estate. And I never see any indication that their lifestyle is hampered in any way
Yeah, it
by,
doesn't feel like it was.
yeah. But his brother's played by Felix Kammerer, German or Austrian rather, actor who was in All Quiet on the Western Front and All the Light We Cannot See, both of which I think were rather good. And those are recent 2022, 2023 films. I don't necessarily remember him specifically, but if he was the lead in All the Light We Cannot See, I'm not sure that he was though. Either way, very good film. Mark Ruffalo's in it. Serious.
I didn't recognize this guy from anywhere, so he was new to me.
Christoph Waltz you might have recognized, however.
Playing a
Another
character that I don't think was in the book,
Harlander.
which
I don't think
was interesting to me. I mean, I like, given that the houses have fallen on hard times and stuff, I did like his kind of the work that he's doing in the story, which is to fund the um, scientific equipment needed for this whole operation. And Waltz is compellingly watchable all the time, no matter what he's doing. So
yeah.
he was a
Yeah.
bright spot for me in this first hour.
Just read your grocery list, Christoph. I will be enwrapped watching you. Yeah, he's great, and I liked. I mean, we knew that he had some secret because he actually really telegraphed it, but then it
Yeah.
was an interesting secret. The one thing in this movie that didn't happen that I was convinced was going to happen was those giant silver antennas things. I was like, somebody's got to get impaled on one of those at
I
some
really
point.
thought that's where it was going.
That
That
was
seemed
like
like it, right?
Chekhov's pointy, spiky thing. Certainly does not materialize.
Hmm.
I did think it was pretty funny though that basically so what Frankenstein is trying to do is already this seemingly impossible task, which is bring dead flesh back to life through galvanism or the magic of electricity, basically. And then what what's the character's name? Harlander. Herr Harlander wants him to do is actually even a step beyond that, which is he's like, put my consciousness into this new body. And I'm just kind of like, where did you get the idea that that's even what he was working toward? Like, was that even on the table, syphilis or not? That part of it came
Wait,
completely out of left field for me because I was like, I don't think Victor Frankenstein has given the impression throughout any of this experimentation that he can move consciousness from one body to another. So
And
his
given,
motivation
yeah, given all
seemed a
that,
little,
Kyle,
yeah.
I feel like it's very understandable his reaction to this request. And he's also kind of hand waving it like, you've already lost your mind to
Yeah.
syphilis. This is
And
why
maybe
you're
that's the
talking this way.
explanation is that he's just literally the syphilis is already infecting his brain. And so he's just like, put me into the body. Like, you can do it.
I mean, I was also like, he's so rudimentary in all the things that he's doing, even when you see what he's doing. So, like, he barely was figuring out how to get the power source to reanimate versus transplant a brain.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, that was just kind of that to me felt kind of jammed in and a little surprising. Um, but you know, maybe it was a syphilis brain. He seemed to be pretty far along, right? So maybe he was just out of his mind at that point.
You might
And
even say his
I
brain
will
was
say,
abnormal.
yes, I was thinking the exact same thing while I was watching. Um, but also, how much difference a wig made in him looking okay or not.
Yeah.
Like, oh goodness, the wig is off. You must be ill. Like,
I barely recognized him until they had a scene together after the surgery, like the university scene. I could not tell that that was Christoph Waltz right away. Not that he's like particularly disguised. I don't know. Yeah, it was interesting. The last person on the cast list I want to mention is Bern Gorman, who plays the Hangman. Very
mm.
small part, very to me a recognizable actor from The Expanse. He was in a bunch of other stuff too, like Hunger Games, um, Pacific Rim, I guess, Washington Spies, which was a fairly good show. You know, it's and I guess he was in Game of Thrones for a
Every
couple
British
seasons.
actor, every actor in the Isles was was on Game of Thrones
No,
at some point
that's
or
what I
another.
think about Harry Potter, but yeah, I guess also probably a lot of them were in Game of Thrones.
But this guy has such a recognizable face. You just see him and you're like, oh yeah, it's that guy. I
Yeah.
don't know his name, but I've seen that. I've seen those cheekbones before.
He was great in The Expanse. He plays an excellent villain. So I wish he, you know, could have done a little more in this. But then again, when you put this many stars into one movie, granted the runtime should have allowed each of them to have like a really amazing scene. Uh, he did not have much of a scene, but he was, you know, it was an entertaining scene. So if you were going to cut half an hour to 45 minutes out of this film, where would you do it?
I mean, I think all the stuff, like all the experiments leading up to the reanimation, I really don't think you needed, like the lab being built and all of that nonsense. I honestly think the weird stuff with the butterfly and Elizabeth, a lot of that could have been cut.
Yeah, a lot of the
Um,
stuff with Elizabeth in the first half, in the first hour, in a bit,
yeah.
and the film needs it to. It's not just like I want to cut for the sake of making the film shorter. Like this movie comes alive with the monster, and we have talked about a lot of the performances, but we haven't yet talked about Jacob Elordi as the creature,
Leaving
and
him, but I thought he was great.
he's phenomenal. Really inhabits this monster in a way that is touching and believable. He's by far the best thing about the movie. And so if you're editing this film, if you're Del Toro making this film, I think you need to recognize like, hey, we don't introduce the best thing about the movie until over an hour in. Maybe we should change that. And you don't really get the same performance from him when he's just like, killing random sailors out in the middle of the Arctic. So it you know you need to skip along faster. We're with these guys building the lab, harvesting creatures, learning all about their family dynamics. We spend a little too much time with dance in the flashbacks even, I think. The whole first half just needs to be tightened up, or some of that stuff needs to be moved until after the reanimation happens because it's just too much.
Well, even with the dad with dance, like trying to establish that that's a piece of the origin story behind the doctor, the abuse and things like that, which is definitely new. This was like adapted for this. But you didn't need to, I feel like you could have done that even, I don't think you needed as the extensiveness. Like you could have done a very quick um cut with all of this. Like mom dies in childbirth. Like there isn't, you don't really need to do the lead up. The pacing for this was like it felt incredibly slow. I actually started to watch it um in like 1 point whatever speed. Like at the point that you're talking about Kyle halfway through, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't." Um so I don't know. I think that there was a lot, but he was by far the best part of the whole thing.
One of the things we have talked about on this podcast as a trio before is the strengths and weaknesses of CGI animals. There's quite a few in this film because that's one of the points that Del Toro is trying to make is that animals freaking love Frankenstein.
Hey.
I guess in part two when he starts telling his own story. But they were pretty janky, I thought. What did you guys think of them?
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Horrible. I mean,
The
the
wolves,
wolves, the
bad for me.
deer, they all they all looked really, really bad. And it's not like they're in the film for like, a brief moment either. Like there are major sequences built around them, and they look terrible.
He could have taken a page from Robert Eggers and introduced 2,000 trained rats into this film, and then they would have had themselves a real movie. Also, he had real wolves, didn't he, in Nosferatu?
Yeah, he did.
Trained deer maybe it would have been difficult, but yeah,
That hard to train.
I also, I mean, I like the idea that animals, for whatever reason, like Frankenstein, are like not scared of him, kind of are neutral to him, except for wolves, I guess. Wolves actually freaking hate him.
Hmm.
I didn't understand why why prey animals were like, oh, you're great, and then predators just wanted to destroy him.
Well, because he is a predator, so there you go.
But then why would prey
Then
animals
why
like
would
him?
be?
Is there competition?
I don't know, man. It was an interesting th like note, but then yeah, the development on it was to me confusing because I felt like wolves probably should have also liked him. If it was going to be some animals think he's amazing, then it would probably be all of them because he's, Mr. Magoo or whatever
I
it is.
mean, he's not Snow White, man. I don't know what they gotta make.
Maybe
They gotta have some enemy.
he certainly has the enemy in man.
Yeah, that's true too.
I also think, and this is where I have to say again that I am actually a big Del Toro fan, and he has made some films that I absolutely love. But I don't even really think, broadly speaking, not just with the CGI creatures, I didn't think this movie looked that good. There are individual shots that look amazing,
Hmm.
but there's also uh like this, I don't know, there's this weird like glossiness or stickiness to everything.
Yeah.
Like everything looks too good. It almost looked like a video game rendered cutscene in a lot of places to me, which I think is weird because I know that they built a lot of sets for this and they filmed actually on location for a lot of this. But I think he was so invested in making everything look sumptuous and gothic that it kind of like infected places that shouldn't look that way. Like
Mm.
the inside of the castle where his lab is, that should look like crazy detailed and all these ornamentations on the walls and stuff like that. But like the ship stuck in the ice looked the same way. And I was like, this should not look like. This is miserable, dirty, been at sea, worn away by the salt water. Like this should not look like a beautifully designed set or everything is perfect and pristine. And same with like the villager's house. So and to add on top of that, a lot of the dialogue in this movie is filmed in these weird wide angle, low angle shots looking up at the characters where the camera's kind of floating around in a way that I found very distracting. So I actually sadly like did not think this movie overall had very good cinematography or was put together very well. I thought that it has these flashes where things look spectacular, and in general, like once the story again starts moving a little bit more and there's more action, it improves. But a lot of this first hour, again, maybe it's because I was so uninvested in the story and what was happening that I started to like nitpick things. But I'm just like, man, this thing is does not look like it's put together with a lot of care to me. So
So I really thought he was going for almost like this gothic fairy tale thing, and so I thought that's what that was. And I think it was deliberate. I think that the costuming and the sets were made to look like they were not real to some extent. Like I mean, even when he's at the little shack in the woods and all that, but I can see how that could be a little too glossy, a little too. Is it like almost like a little too smooth? It's like almost like it was all CGI, or is
yeah,
that?
it looked it a lot of it that even that I know was filmed on location somehow looked like CGI.
Mm.
And this kind of look and feel worked for me really well in Crimson Peak. And so I kind of want to revisit that movie and see if I can understand what's different about how they shot that film than this film, because it's the same cinematographer, same director, and yet for some reason here it just really rubbed me the wrong way.
Hmm.
Speaking of costume, I think Mia Goth was costumed really, really well. I really liked everything she was
Oh,
wearing.
that was
Yeah.
beautiful.
Didn't really care about um, Victor's clothes uh, as much, but I did notice that everybody had great hats.
They did.
Uh,
Wigs, or hair. Um, I thought that her costuming and the use of her costumes in the various scenes was very well done. I also thought that the funeral scene, that was like a great sarcophagus.
both of them.
Yeah. So,
There were some, yeah, beautiful touches to this. And then I think in the third act, when the monster's telling his story, I really kind of lost the thread here because I didn't understand why they were doing what they were doing anymore. And it's kind of explained away in a voiceover narration. But it's like, so Victor is hunting Frankenstein and maybe has shot him hundreds of times at this point.
right.
Frankenstein only wants to die. And yet they're doing this whole cat and mouse thing where the mouse is hunting the cat for some reason. And it comes to this culmination on the snow where he's like, "Oh, you've brought dynamite? Yeah, let me try this." But it's like, why didn't they just go find a lab somewhere where Victor Frankenstein could really work on killing Frankenstein? I feel like they would have both been happy with that. So I didn't quite understand the motivation for the whole chase when they had the same goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, everything from the monster's point of view, once the story switches to him, the stuff at the lab, the visit to the hut, the working with the old man on his language, and the patience the old man shows him that Victor couldn't summon because he's had a terrible father. Um, all that stuff is really, really great. The monster arriving at the wedding, pretty good. And then, yeah, you're right, Stuart. It basically just becomes like Victor shoots the monster, and then the monster breaks a bone of Victor's, and this they just trade back and forth, shooting each other and breaking each other's bones, to no real ill effect on either of them to some extent.
I think he basically kills Victor
Yeah,
in the
eventually,
end.
but it's a little. I don't really understand why either of them's letting the other one away at any point because there's several times where the monster could have killed Victor that he didn't, and then it just you're right that it doesn't make a lot of sense. I do love that the monster picks up Victor and like flings him against a wall, and then he throws him into an armoire, and he throws him into a mirror. He's like throwing this guy all over the place, and then William rushes into the room, and he like gives him a little shove, and he like falls against the a bureau in like exactly the right way to break his neck or puncture his artery or something. It's like given like what Victor's been through in terms of like flying into furniture through the air. William dies from like a little tiny tap to the side, which kind of just cracked me up.
Yeah, that was inevitable. That was the scene of the film, or right after the scene of the film that I liked the least, where he like where Victor shoots Elizabeth because you know it's gonna happen, and it just happens exactly the way you think it's gonna happen. And to me, I was just like, well, all right, well, what's the point? Like, can we do some things that are unexpected? But I know we're telling an old story, so no, I guess we can't.
Can we also
Th-
talk about Elizabeth's questionable love for the monster?
She loves how pure he is,
Hmm.
or something, like a
It's
butterfly.
really, I mean, just back to the fact that she's underwritten, but again, that just feels so dumb. Outside of like she's interacted with him for moments, right?
She's
I
very insightful. You know, she was able to see right to the heart of Victor. So maybe somehow she's able to see right to the heart of whatever personality this thing has because it's made up of, it even says like I have multiple identities basically.
Her relationship with the monster, uh, it reads more as motherly than romantic. She meets him when he's essentially a child and he knows nothing and he can't speak. And she shows him basically just a little bit of patience and kindness. And then when she encounters him again, she only sees him a few very brief times throughout the movie. There is kind of more of this like, you know, romantic or sexual undercurrent, which it again, it doesn't exactly feel earned given how much time she's spent with him or how many times she's seen him, their interactions throughout the film to that point. So yeah, I mean, William and Elizabeth show up at the lab shortly after the reanimation. It's hard to tell exactly how much time has passed, but maybe a few weeks.
Yeah.
And then are there only very briefly before he kind of hustles them away again and says, I need to basically deal with this situation and you guys need to go back to town. So
Also, I got your uncle on ice in the basement, but
yeah, the uncle that I keep telling you is away. He actually is dead. And you know, in this adaptation, Victor really is just an irredeemable piece of shit from the very
yeah.
beginning to the very end. And that's not my memory of the book. In the
No,
book,
they
I
make
seem to
him.
remember the monster being a bit more monstrous and Victor being a little bit more complicated. Yes, he's driven and he does immoral things, but he also does have somewhat of a code and a moral compass. And so it's the story of two flawed,
Mm,
creatures who both make mistakes and who both have their admirable uh, and their unsavory qualities. And in this one, it's just like the monster is pretty much morally infallible. He doesn't really kill anyone who doesn't explicitly attack him. And then Victor is basically again just like irredeemably horrible the entire film through. So I think that's kind of what I alluded to in the beginning about me not being able to figure out if it's Oscar's Isaac's acting choices or just the character as written, but there's very little of redeeming value about Victor at all.
yeah, I mean, I feel like in the book there's they're both monsters to some extent. Even though there may be a little bit more of a sympathetic piece um thrown in there, but um I definitely think they made this a much more hopeful ending, weirdly. More of a redemption story versus the horror that it was intended to be in the book.
It really didn't
Um,
feel earned, did it, for
it
Victor
did
to go
not.
out all like redeemed and forgiven? It
And also
if
to suddenly be like, I'm your father, Luke. It really was like a little bit, it was a little Darth Vader-y,
Yeah.
and they didn't earn it. So,
Because he has another scene right before the wedding scene where he's like, "I'm filled with remorse. It's all I think about. I'm a different person now." And maybe we're supposed to believe that he was being insincere, and certainly Elizabeth calls him out in that scene. But then he does it again at the end of the film. But now it's cool, and so
yeah.
yeah, that was a little bit annoying. I feel like I'm getting influenced by you guys and your displeasure of this film. I found it enjoyable to watch. I did have those questions that I've brought up. But overall, I think the performance by Elordi was fun to watch. The makeup on him was really cool. I liked his physique and the way that he inhabited that character of the monster. I liked Mia Goth. I thought she was fascinating to watch. I didn't have a problem with Oscar Isaac's performance, but I do think the writing maybe was, and for a few different characters was off. And I did not necessarily have a problem with the pacing, but then again, do have a head cold and I'm not 100% myself. Maybe that means I enjoy things more. I'm not sure, but I
You,
got
you
up
don't you don't have to apologize for enjoying the film. That's kind of the goal. I'm bummed that I didn't enjoy the film, so I'm jealous of you.
Yeah, me too. Although I will say, and I shouldn't be like, I do want to emphasize, I do think it's worth watching just for Elordi's performance. I thought he was really, really good, and I really did love that interpretation. I loved, I mean, the makeup and the way they have him sewn together, and then there's like parts of his face that are clearly dead or not. And I really thought his physicality was really phenomenal. And um, this was like I thought that that was worth watching. I mean, I didn't know the dude from the kissing booth had it in him, and I'm kidding. I think he's been in other things beside that. Um, but he was really like in his interaction, especially when he's, in the forest, that whole montage where he's like the spirit of the forest. I thought that that was just a beautiful little vignette, and um I thought that that was worth watching. It honestly made me wish that the rest of it was a little bit more consistent to honor that performance. But I enjoyed his performance a lot in that interpretation of Frankenstein.
I did too. I think it's interesting to me to think about um why was Del Toro so drawn to this? And we saw this with Robert Eggers too, where when we talked about Nosferatu a few months ago, he talked about how this was a film that he was almost scared to approach, and he thought about the right way to do it for a long time, and it was one of his oldest cinematic obsessions. And Del Toro talks in interviews about, from 2008, like a long, long, long time ago, about how he wants so badly to adapt Frankenstein and how he is both drawn to it and terrified of it because of his love of the source material. And I think that's really interesting. And I wonder if it almost, I don't know, he's almost too close to it, or he can't. I don't know. It's interesting to me that this is the vision of the thing he's been thinking about for such a long time, and I don't quite know what to do with that, given how I feel about the movie.
Mhm.
But it's a fascinating place to end up, given where he started with this franchise and how long he's been thinking about it. I will recommend a few things that I think did some of these things better, just because I couldn't stop thinking about them throughout the course of the film. So first of all, the scenes in the ice where the ship is stuck on its way to the North Pole are strongly evocative of the TV show The Terror.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Like, cannot. That, especially the first season, which each season I think is kind of anthologic, like it adapts a different story. Actually, I've not seen any of the subsequent seasons, but the first season of The Terror is one of my favorite pieces of media from the last 10 or 15 years. It is so, so, so good, and really gets at how insanely miserable it would be to be stuck in the ice in the way that they are. And I
Yep.
kind of laughed at the end, at the very end of the film. The monster pushes the ship free from the ice, and there's like the ship is stuck on the ice, and then like 10 feet behind it is just completely open ocean. And then, when you're watching The Terror, you see that these guys got themselves stuck in an endless expanse of ice that stretches for hundreds of miles in every direction. There is no pushing yourself free from that. You have to wait for the thaw. So,
They're there for years in the
yeah,
show.
years. Yeah. So, if anybody liked those sections of the film, I would strongly, strongly recommend checking out The Terror. And then the
I love
second
that.
is for a Frankenstein adaptation that I think is done better. The TV show Penny Dreadful does a fabulous job with the Frankenstein story, among many other stories, and it is kind of a pastiche of many different uh, franchises or characters from this kind of horror, this era of horror, and it's really, really good as well. So it ran for 3 seasons 10 to 15 years ago. Really, really good film,
It
and a
is.
much better Frankenstein adaptation in my opinion.
It's a good Frankenstein adaptation. There's other things that are not as great, but I agree. I think that their imagining of him in that and the actor who plays him is really incredible. It's escaping me right now. Um,
Rory Kinnear,
yeah.
kind of a character actor from a
And
lot
that
of his stuff.
was what Eva Green, right? Was
Yeah.
Yeah.
the main character. So
I need to watch that show. I've never seen more than like one episode.
it's actually, you know what, it is to me, I thought it like it is very, very gothic and a bit pulpy, but like they do a really good job with that storyline and the cast is pretty great. So yeah. What wow, was that really like a decade ago?
Yeah, it was a long time ago now.
Wow. I
Well, the
feel
the,
like
the next big monster movie that's coming out that I think which is on all of our radars will be Robert Eggers' next film, which is Werewolf.
mm,
And that's supposed to come out Christmas Day 2026. So we've got a minute, but it's filming now.
mm,
Aaron Taylor Johnson, Lily Rose Depp, Willem Dafoe, Ralph Ineson in talks to join. So
mm.
a familiar cast of characters. Actually, that's all people who were in Nosferatu.
Maggie Gyllenhaal also has a essentially Bride of Frankenstein film coming out early next year. I saw a trailer for that just recently, before another film.
Well, that's kind of cool. I like her.
I wonder if she's trying to ride on who knows when these things were end of production, but seems like a kind of an Ants Bugs Life situation that both of these films are arriving in the same 6 month span here.
Mm.
But in that one, Christian Bale will be Frankenstein's monster.
Hmm.
I could see him doing a good job of that.
Yeah, me too.
Well, guys, this is not what I thought it was. I thought this was going to be a love fest when I logged on to this podcast this
Oh,
morning. But then again, yeah, I'm delirious. So it was fun to talk about it with you. Any final thoughts?
not really.
I'm sorry to be such a downer, basically. Like, I flagged this for you guys as something that I was really excited for months ago, and I was like, hey, if you guys cover this, I'd love to join. But then, due to my, you know, uh, old man nature who can't stay up late, I didn't end up watching it until we're recording this literally the day after it was released on Netflix.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I also, Stuart, did not expect to be coming in here quite so grouchy this morning. I thought I was going to be coming in here full of, rapturous praise for this film. And so, to anybody out there who really liked the movie and was expecting to hear all about how great it was on their, favorite podcast, Reanimated, I apologize as the guest who was apparently brought in to be a grump.
That.
We all have those days. And, a lot of your criticisms are justified here. It's just, I guess it depends on your frame of mind while you're watching it. I watched it at 4 a.m. this morning
Oh
and
my
had a great
goodness.
time. Had just a
This is why you were totally delirious.
what?
Stuart's on NyQuil up at 4 a.m. in the
He wasn't
dark.
even watching this movie. He probably watched something else,
I might have watched a completely the wrong film. Sorry, guys. I apologize.
he was watching Young Frankenstein, so he can't understand our negative reaction. No.
But
Um,
let us know what you thought about it, everybody, at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. You can join us on there's a Discord at the Brain Muncher Zombie Collective on Discord. Where we're there to have a chat too, and you can find the rest of our episodes on the website, reanimated.podbean.com. I did not mean to cut you off, HA, but now all the logistics are done, so have at it.
no, it's all good. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And until next time, bye bye.
See you.
Goodbye.